living water. He offers living water to all humanity, but he offered it specifically to this woman. And she said, surely this man is a prophet. So I'm coming to you not to preach, but I do want to glorify Jesus and affirm our underlying belief that Jesus can break the power of the ever-present human addiction to sin, so often manifested in the type of things that we're talking about. I've been a pastor for many years. I've handed over the leadership of my church after 20 years. A Christian rehab set up in our town, and they said, we'd like to go into partnership with you. And we'd like you to help the guys who are coming off drugs and alcohol. They need to get into community. You know the story. They need somewhere to live. You know the story. They need a new family. You know the story. They need some life skills training. You've heard that one before. So, very naively, I said yes. And these guys came down to church regularly. And we had every possible experience. You've heard that one before? The guy who came in and cased the joint, took his friend, broke into our centre one night, broke into my office, broke into my filing cabinet, all 4 drawers. The marks of his crowbar are still there. He ended up in prison, so we had to work out what to say to him in prison. The guy who'd been on the streets of London as an alcoholic, picked up by a Christian activist, came through rehab, now a member of my church, married with children. The guy who came off drugs and took about 10 years for his psychology to really land, you know that one? Now married on the front line of evangelism in a different part of the country. And the guy who found Christ but didn't quite make it because he was too messed up, and his body was too destroyed to live a long life, and he died prematurely, but he went to be in glory. You know that one? Just a few of our stories. The well-intentioned carers lost their way, the wise mentors did well, the prayers prayed, those who offered accommodation sometimes came unstuck, and the church pastors had to learn a few things that no one ever taught them in Bible college. But today I run an organisation called Jubilee Plus. We're helping churches increase their capacity with social action on many different fronts. If you'd like to come to our conferences in November, you can find information on our stand in London. We'd love to see you there. We do many different things, and we work in many different ways, partnering different organisations to try and increase the capacity of churches to engage with the social demands and challenges of our society, which are continuing to grow. And this is fueled by a lack of resources in the public domain, as you are all too aware of. And so we have been thinking, from the point of view of local churches, how do we make the connection between local churches and those suffering from addictions or recovering from addictions? And many of you will already be very painfully aware that one of the biggest challenges is the capacity of local churches to meaningfully engage with some of these issues. The capacity often isn't there. Now, we're in a church where the capacity is very clearly there. But this is the exception, isn't it? This is not the norm. So we in our organisation are trying to help church leaders and church activists be more strategic, be more practical, be more effective in engaging with different areas of need. We've done a lot of work with food banks, with debt advice, We're doing work in life skills training. We've helped with developing the street pastors and all sorts of other different things. But one of the biggest challenges is, how does the church engage with those suffering from and recovering from various addictions? So, some time ago, we convened a meeting in Birmingham with a few people, some of whom are here today, to take some advice and say, here we are, we're a capacity building organisation, and we want you to tell us the narrative. You're working with drug and alcohol and other areas of addiction and recovery. What's going on nationally, and what can we do to get alongside what you're doing? And we had a very blunt conversation that day, where we all acknowledged services provided by the state are going downhill and it's pretty much irreversible. Gaps are appearing. We acknowledge that most churches are not really on the page in any strategic sense. We acknowledge that many organisations are working in geographical areas and can't easily see the national picture. We acknowledge the huge need to develop rehabilitation facilities. We acknowledge the huge need to connect that rehabilitation residential aspect of it with the therapeutic aspect of it. We acknowledge that there wasn't really a single national resource that churches and activists could plug into. We had that robust conversation. And I asked them the question on that day, what do you think is going on nationally? What do we know about the national scene in terms of church engagement in areas of addiction? And has anyone done any work on this? Have we got some headlines that we can actually think about in terms of where we go from here? And the answer was, no, we don't. Would you agree with that? It's hard to really get a grasp of what's actually going on. So as a result of that meeting in Birmingham, a couple of years ago, we launched a research project through our organisation Jubilee Plus. And the core team member who's responsible for research, Andy Biggs, is here today. I'll introduce you to him during the Q&A. And we tasked a researcher who's been working for us for a year, on a very part-time basis, but consistently throughout a year, to find out everything she could about churches and other Christian organisations and the area of addictions. And we use the word addictions in the broad scope. We're not just dealing with substance misuse, although that's a high priority, but we also wanted to find out about gambling and pornography and shopping and all the other things, the other addictions that are becoming more and more significant in the narrative. So what I'm here to do today, just in a few minutes, is to share with you some of our initial findings. We've done a first stage report and we're going to publish a summary document at the beginning of November in our conference in London, which takes place on the 10th of November in London. Details at the back if you're interested, as I mentioned earlier on. And we just looked through all the information we managed to get throughout the United Kingdom, so this is not England specific, and I particularly tasked the researcher, this is not urban specific either. We want to see suburban and rural communities as well, and find out everything we can. And we contacted some people here, some organisations here. We've been quizzing you for information. We've been talking to local churches. We've been talking to denominational contacts. We've been talking to people in the know as much as we can. And we came up with a few headlines, which I'm hoping I can show you here. I need to move the slide on. Here are the things we found out, as far as we can tell from a year's worth of research. Most addiction-related projects are not actually run by churches. Of those we found, 73% are run by Christian charities, 15% run by partnerships, and only 12% run by churches as individual units. By the way, there'll be a published document available within a month from now. And there'll be a PDF version as well, and you can find this through our website. So we'll be publishing all this shortly. So thinking about churches, individual churches rarely actually own and run a project related to a particular addiction. Christian charities are basically sponsoring the majority. We also noticed, interestingly, many of the projects have a long history. 2/3 having been running for 9 years or longer, which is interesting. That's quite an encouraging point. That where things are developed, there's a reasonable amount of staying power. A significant majority of organisations run more than one project. So Christian organisations, we actually researched 74 Christian organisations that we can find, some of whom are here, of course. And 78% of them ran far more than a single project, running multiple projects. That may not be a particular surprise, but it was a specific conclusion that we came to. Projects are geographically spread, but concentrated in urban areas. Of all the projects that we discovered, 68% serve urban areas, and only 5% are specifically focused in rural areas. The other 27% is a mixture. Now, is that because addictions, particularly substance addictions, are concentrated in urban areas? The likely answer is probably yes. We can't prove that. Or is it because stronger churches exist in urban areas, bigger churches which are likely to take on those projects? The answer to that is probably yes as well. The majority of Christian addiction-related projects are small in number of people, small in resources, and small in geographical scope. Lots of people are running small projects. See if we can move to the next one. Whoops. The sixth point I find particularly interesting. Most projects aim to help adults rather than teens or children. So of what we discovered, 81% of projects are aimed at adults and 17% specifically at youth 11 to 18. I think that's significant, given what we know about the risk of addiction in teenage years. While 70% of projects focus on substance addictions, 23% have a broader focus helping people struggling with all kinds of addictions. So we're also interested in that broader narrative. What about these other addictions? What about gambling, for example? What about pornography and sex addiction? There's more evidence of a focus on pornography and sex addiction than on gambling, far more. That's an interesting observation. How dangerous is the gambling addiction socially? How much energy is being put into the remedial effect of trying to overcome that? Statistically, not much effort is being put in that area overall. But it seems clear that we are becoming more alert as churches and Christian organisations to the risks of sex addiction and pornography-related addiction. And there have been some new initiatives there in recent years which we can spot statistically in terms of their impact in terms of projects being run in local communities. This next point, I think, is very important. Of all that we've discovered, half of all Christian projects that support people with addictions do this as a secondary part of a project rather than the focus of it. This is a very fundamental key in terms of looking at it from the local church point of view. Now, I speak as a local church leader of decades standing, and the way that addictions present themselves to most church leaders are either isolated cases that they're dealing with on the fringe of the pastoral community, or as a secondary aspect of some other project that they're working on, where they come across addiction as a kind of stronghold or issue that's deeply connected with something else. Maybe a homeless shelter, maybe prostitution, and particularly nowadays, food banks and related projects. Now here's an interesting narrative. So obviously with the development of food banks as a primary social action strategy in the churches, it's created a new narrative in the last decade. And that narrative has impacts in terms of the interface with government and universal credit benefits and all that. We can leave all that aside for the moment. The narrative that I'm interested in here is that food banks run largely by volunteers are encountering increasingly clients who obviously have addiction issues, and they're beginning to think, what are we going to do about this? And usually they don't know what the answer is, and there's no training and there's no context for developing that. And here's another interesting narrative I'd like to just put on the table for consideration. Many food banks now are thinking of connecting food bank with things like debt advice and intervention, and also life skills training, and those type of things. And in all that network, wherever you look in that network of projects, that is a growing narrative in our country, you'll see addictions as one of the threads. And that's what local church leaders perceive. We want to help this woman, but she's got an alcohol problem. We want to help this man, but he's a drug addict, so he doesn't want food, he wants money, all that kind of thing. Now, I think some further thinking needs to go into how we capitalise, from your point of view in the Isaac Network, I'm looking in as a friend, as an outsider, on the energy in churches that is being given towards this network of initiatives around Food Bank and beyond Food Bank, and how we capitalise on the opportunities there to help and train church activists and church leaders towards more strategic interventions with addictions, which they're not currently able to do. This is a generalisation, you appreciate. Forgive me for generalisations. I'm just trying to think of a big narrative here. Does that make any sense to you? That's something that I think is from our end. Maybe you might find that a helpful observation. So, 51% of projects under this heading were not primarily focused on addiction, but addictions came up as a secondary to the main thrust or purpose of that project. By the way, this flags up another issue. This is a more general observation that I would make that is relevant to your consideration. One of the things that churches, I think, of many denominations and cultures are really needing to get to grips with is the gap between church leaders here and good-hearted volunteers here is too big a gap for strategic interventions. The church leaders are not specialists and sometimes have ambivalence about how they deal with some of these projects, and the volunteers often lack the capacity to really respond to the needs. And so we're seeing the need for the reinvention of what the New Testament calls the role of the biblical deacon. In other words, a leader in the church who is able to be a specialist in particularly care for the poor and the needy. A specialist may be paid, may be trained, may be endorsed, may be highly capable of actually being strategic. That's going to be a key. That is beginning to happen, but needs to happen on a wider basis. I'm nearly there, sorry about this. I normally just preach from the Bible. But they asked me to share a few statistics with you. I hope this is making some sense. I'm just trying to give some headlines of what we discovered through a year's worth of work, and then we can think together, where do we go from here? We've got a phase 2 of research to develop. We haven't quite decided how we're going to take this forward and who are going to be our partners, and some of you will probably be in the room today. So, point number 9. The highest proportion of Christian work to tackle addictions involves working with current addicts. So our analysis so far, 35% of projects support current addicts, 25% in post-crisis support, 18% rehabilitation, and 13% preventative, 9% supporting family and friends. So the preventative aspect is weaker. That's interesting, isn't it? I think we're all aware of that as just intuitively from our experience working in this area. But we've actually demonstrated it statistically in a way that we found helpful. Point number 10. Personal well-being is the main goal of most of the projects, while faith development is not a priority in most cases. None of these are absolutes, by the way, this is just trends. Now, this can be defined by direct communication with project leaders or by reading the goals and objectives declared in public communication. We may want to reflect on that, given that our commitment is also to faith development. My commitment is, and I'm sure yours is as well. There may be various reasons for that trajectory there. The focus generally of projects, of course, is on well-being and building up community and life skills and viability in social life. And finally, in terms of funding, less than a third of funding for Christian projects tackling addiction comes from churches themselves. Of the projects we researched, only 29% of funding come from churches, 30% from private donors, 17% from charities and foundations, 7% from businesses, 6% from government, and 2% from schools. 29% from churches. So there's a big funding mix here, isn't there? And funding, you know better than me, is absolutely foundational to everything. That's what we discovered. We'll give you some more details in a published document coming your way very shortly through our website or through our conference. So I want to just end now, having mentioned those things, with just 4 observations, or maybe 5. Excuse me. As I was thinking about this, I thought, probably we're in the process and need to develop what I call writing a new story. The church has written a few new stories in the last decade. Here's one. Street pastors and the like. That's a story the church has written that people actually understand, generally. Street angels and all the comparable projects. It's a narrative. It's in the media. It's something that police understand. It's something that local councils talk about. It's something that churches, generally speaking, understand. We've also written a narrative called Food Bank, which is such a big new narrative that, in the general election before one, last before one, the issue of Food Bank Britain was a central discussion point in the general election campaign. Unthinkable 10 years before. So we've written some interesting narratives. What kind of, there's a narrative developing on relief from debt. Many of you will have seen the programme last night on television featuring CAP at the centre of that. That's a narrative that's capturing some imagination. As I was praying about this talk, I was just saying, Lord, I really think that the church needs to find a way of telling a consistent narrative of recovery and rehabilitation from addiction. That becomes a church narrative, a media narrative, something that can be validated and verified and shown as a fundamental therapeutic intervention of the church in our society. That's my kind of prophetic exhortation to the Isaac Network. Lots of people need to be part of that. Obviously the narrative is there, but it hasn't been built up, as far as I can see, to a strategic national level. Could this be done in the next decade? Yes, it could. I believe it could. Secondly, and this is my work here, changing the mindset of church leaders. They need confidence, they need to overcome insecurities, they need good biblical perspectives, they need methodologies that they can understand that work in their churches. And they will need to develop strategic leaders commissioned to work in this area and not try and do it themselves or give it to inadequately equipped volunteers who will suffer because they won't be able to negotiate the complexities. And so thirdly, I think we need more franchises and models. Replicable resources, training courses, things like the Camp Fresh Start course. When I say franchise, I mean something run by a national organisation that a church can adopt, like what I would call a community franchise or a social franchise. You understand the terminology. But it's very helpful terminology because this is the terminology local church leaders understand. This is what they buy into. And they need the training, the framework, and the support to do that. Are there enough replicable models and resources and franchises available for different types of addictions that are easily marketed, developed, and multiplied? I think there's more work to be done there. Two final points. We need to get entrepreneurs on board. Here's the other change that's going on in churches in the last decade particularly. Many of these things cannot really be started and developed by church leaders because they don't have the skills. That's no disrespect to church leaders. But there's a certain different skill set needed in terms of working in community projects, finding an economic framework, connecting it with business, connecting it with accommodation and housing and rehab in some cases. And so we need our social and economic entrepreneurs in churches to be inspired to get involved. So I think of a rehab project with largely alcohol addiction, which in a part of the country where the guy running it's just linked it up with a community farm and he gets everyone to work on the land as part of the therapeutic project, sort of thing that you'll be very experienced in and know a lot about. These sort of things need to happen regularly. And the final point, my very final comment, and then I'll hand over to Q&A. Do we need a single national resource hub? Website, advice centre, signposting centre, to help churches who are thinking, I need to get involved in this area. Where do we go with gambling? We want to help this group of addicts. We're working with these homeless. We're thinking about rehab. We've got some property we want to use. We've got some activists who have this particular interest. We've got these social circumstances in our community. Whatever it might be, where do they go? Where do people go? They'll go to some of the organisations in your network if they know them. And if they have confidence in the knowledge to go to that place. But I think we probably need to develop something more generic that combines and links together existing resources and encourages people to find them, but also provides advice who don't know where to start in this particular issue. We've been pioneering a similar resource hub in the area of refugees and asylum seekers and launched a website last year as a result of consultation with people in that area. So we're just walking down that road in another context. It's just an issue that I think probably needs some further consideration in the discussion of issues to do with addictions. So thank you for listening. I'd like to have some Q&A, and I think it would be more fruitful if we do have some Q&A. Sorry there's so many statistics, but I hope some of those headlines resonate and make you think, aha, I wondered if that was true, or aha, the fact that it is true guides me to think further about particular issues. Do talk to us, our team, and I'd like to, as I end, just introduce you, if you could just stand up, Andy, to Andy Biggs, who has been heading our research. And if you ask any technical questions about research, I might ask him to answer them because he's actually managing the project. So thank you for listening, and I'm handing back to Peter.
Well, thank you, Martin, for stimulating us, and many of the things you said, I'm sure, I know resonate with me and with us here. We've got about 10 minutes Q&A. Who'd like to stand up and speak up? Come on.
Hi, my name is Hussein. I work in the drug and alcohol field as a Christian, but not in Christian projects particularly. I liked what you said. I was really impressed by the detail and the amount of work that you've done. I think one of the bits that was missing for me, I like the thought of a kind of alpha for addictions as well, the kind of church. The church understand alpha and it's in the public consciousness now. But also something around from the end user perspective, so the addict who goes to a rehab or who gets some help, to be able to know, is there something in my area that I can link to? A lot of people maybe go away from their area to get help and then want to go back at some stage. Maybe some element to what you're talking about that connects people to that hub. I know you want to build the infrastructure, but also thinking about the end user in mind as well.
So, yeah, we'd love to see a hub develop. I mean, we currently don't have the resources to do it on our own, so I don't want to raise your expectations too high. But in partnership, it can be done. And a hub like that could provide the sort of information on a specific point that you've made, which is what's going on in the area in terms of churches, projects, supportive contexts. And so our geographical mapping is a preliminary step towards trying to do that. Now, we've done a similar thing in the refugee and asylum sector because we discovered that all the charities and initiatives tended to be regionally based, which is fine, but therefore they wouldn't be able to advise people if they moved to another part of the country. You see what I mean? And so I think some work in that area would be valuable, and I take that point. Do you want to comment on that, Andy, or do you just agree with it? Yeah, Andy agrees. We're noting things. Because we're on the journey. This is halfway through. So your input is helpful. Yeah.
Now for predictions. I'm going to be talking a little bit about this afternoon. Freedom in Christ is not specifically for religion. It very much deals with the underlying issues.
So freedom in Christ, we need to just make a note of thinking about freedom in Christ as well.
Focus.
Really helpful if everyone uses the mic, because some people may be hard of hearing or maybe at the back where the audibility is difficult if people are facing forward. So if people don't mind using the mic,
So I'm Fergus from Barnsley Church,
Yes.
and I wanted to ask about supervision of people working with complex issues like addiction, and whether, if they're doing it as a church project, do you think the church needs to pay for their supervision?
Well, that's a very big question, isn't it? This is one of the fundamental issues, which is if the church is supervising a project or owning a project, they have to own social responsibility, legal responsibility, and there should be very active supervision, I would say. And I think we haven't yet, most churches haven't yet built up a structure to work out how that could work in a local church context. And churches aren't going to be able to work it out for themselves generally. So I think hence the franchise model, having a structure for different things that churches can easily adopt, which has some external input as well, is really important. And another interrelated point is, of course, what I haven't mentioned, but is another really key area for church understanding to grow is mental health. And actually having people who have some fundamental understanding of some of the mental health dimensions too is often very lacking in local church culture. But that's bringing to another point. But yes, unsupervised project work becomes extraordinarily risky for reasons that people here won't need me to explain.
There's a gentleman there.
Hi, I'm Dave, and I run a project in Dundee, recovering addict. And I think the important question for me is whether it's important for churches to work together, because in Dundee there's more emphasis on doctrinal differences than there is in helping the lost and needy.
Okay, so I haven't emphasised this particular point, but it's a good opportunity to do so. It is often beyond the capacity and competence of a local church to run things on their own. And there is a very good argument for partnership. And some of the models that are around are based on partnership anyway. And for example, if we go into other sectors like food bank or street pastors is based on a fundamental partnership model in the local locality. So I think we need to move down that road in this area wherever possible and practical. I don't want to comment in detail about the doctrinal issues in Dundee because I'm not a specialist in that. But they're probably similar to other parts of the country. So I don't think it's unique to Dundee. But I do think if you have an inter-church partnership, you also have to have an agreed methodology and an agreed structure of governance and organisation of funding, because what tends to happen if this is not very clearly agreed at the beginning, then it falls apart later on. And you have to work out how to do that. So that's, I mean, I'm sure you'd agree with that, but it's a kind of, there has to be some careful thought given by the initial stakeholders. And the church leaders need to buy into that. Otherwise, what tends to happen for you is a new vicar or minister comes along and says, we're pulling out of that, and then it all falls apart. And that's what you want to try and avoid where possible.
We have time for one last question. Okay.
Yes, I'm Stuart Roberts. I'm just a volunteer here in the Lighthouse project. You talked about the franchise models and the hub. These things really resonate. The idea of providing things that other churches can learn from and develop from. Do you think it would be possible to develop that sort of thing for addiction without taking into account all of the other related issues? I'm thinking of mental health and homelessness and breakdown of relationship and so on.
That's a really difficult question. All those other things would have to be part of a package. But you couldn't provide a hub which was equally a specialist hub on mental health, I don't think, without and all the other different issues. But we all know that addiction is intermeshed with all sorts of other complex social needs. So some very careful thought would have to be given to what is the parameter of a hub development in terms of information in the centre of it. What any IT hub, website hub can do is it can signpost things that are outside very easily so that people can get information there. But I think it would probably have to be focused primarily on the issue of addiction, because even having all the different areas of addictions on the same site is a huge thing, because I'm very keen on the idea that we don't just talk about substance misuse addictions, although they are incredibly important, but the church needs to become stronger in dealing with other types of addictions that are very, very socially destructive. So we need to have some comprehensive look at those things. It's a difficult question. It's a very good question to which I only give a rather general answer at this point. And you can only make a final comment, and then with a microphone.
I just think that's a question that has occurred to us in the context of our research, because whilst we can understand statistics and numbers and centres and locations, there are a multidisciplinary need. I think one of the key questions that we're looking to press into in order to answer Martin's question about what does a hub look like is actually get a handle on how projects are practically interacting with mental health care, with the broader range of issues that come alongside addiction, including food bank, debt advice, and the other aspects that we get to grips with in terms of a multi-approach. So getting those things clarified and communicated, and examples of best practice being researched, I think very important for the church as a whole to get hold of, and then find a model that can be applied more generally.
Thank you very much.
Again, thanks to Martin and Andy and his team.